Hello, I'm Alan from Dynamic Circle Auto. We are specialists in 1959 through 1961 General Motors products, like this 1960 Buick Electra 4-door hardtop that I'm sitting in right now. Today in this video, we're going to do a demonstration about how to properly clean, polish, and preserve the original hubcaps from another 1960 Buick similar to this. And we're going to aim to do so without creating any damage and to produce the best result possible. Okay, here's the set of hubcaps that we're going to work on. They're off of a car that was sitting since 1983, so they've got a lot of light, I would say, film all over them. They look like they weren't washed right before the car was parked, so they're very dirty. But they're basically in excellent shape with minimal denting around the edges. So these parts are pretty rare, especially in excellent condition. So we're going to do our best to preserve them. The first thing we're going to do before we even attempt to clean is to apply some coil to the hardware. I'm going to make some product endorsements in this video. I have no affiliation with any of the companies that I'm going to mention. This is the first one. Cano Labs, Penaphyte or Coil. It's the best penetrating oil you can possibly buy. I'm going to apply it sparingly to each of the screws that hold the fins on this hubcap before I make them wet to allow the penetrating oil to seep into the threads. Otherwise, water will block that. Okay, now that we've got penetrating oil on soaking in all the hardware on these hubcaps, we're going to go to the next step, which is to remove the die-cast pieces. So I'm going to build a little makeshift stand using a folded towel to support the hubcap so we don't dent it. These are Phillips head screws, and of course we have to choose the right bit. Usually a screwdriver that looks bigger than you think is the right one. I believe this is a number 2 bit. Very important that we start out with the right tool, because each of these screw heads is fairly rusted. We could very easily strip the Phillips recess and then we're in big trouble. So what I do right off the bat, make sure it's seated very securely in the screw, and then with a lot of force bear down, and you hear that snap. If you're not bearing down enough and you cam out of one of these screws, you might ruin the hardware and not be able to get the hubcap apart. So I'm about midway through this process of disassembling these hubcaps, and as predicted, I'm having a difficult time. Some of these small screws are very rusted, and one of them on another hubcap gave me a really tough time. What I ended up having to do is to remove everything else, remove the die-cast chrome ring from the cap itself, and then slightly bend on one of these fins just to see if I could possibly loosen it up without damaging anything, but just a little pressure back and forth, and I was able to get it out. But what I'd like to demonstrate is that what actually did help a lot too is the Phillips recess, because the screw is so rusted, it actually has rust debris in it. So to get a better grip on the screw, I'm using a fine wire brush. I'm actually going to brush out the rust from the recess in the screw so that it's as clear and clean as possible. And then reapply the coil, let it seep in again. And what actually got this off last time was I turned the screw toward tighten because I had a new grip. It was camming out in the loosen direction, but I still had a heavy grip in the tighten direction. So I was able to snap it loose by that technique, but boy, it was close. I thought I was done. Okay, we have success. I did manage to get all 4 of these hubcaps completely disassembled. Each part came off. And interestingly, I found one that was slightly different. One hubcap had stainless steel hardware and external tooth lock washers holding all the parts on. This applies for 1960 Buick owners only. There was a recall early on in the year. Owners complained of the hubcaps rattling as you drove. So this was Buick's official fix. So one of these hubcaps was either reworked by a dealer or it was purchased new. Maybe a hubcap was missing, fell off the car. So one of them came apart really easily. It had the stainless steel hardware, which is perfect, and external tooth lock washers holding everything together. So as these are put together, that wouldn't be a bad idea to add the external tooth lock washer to all of them so that the car gets a complete recall. So at this point, I've got all the parts separated. I'm going to put the rest of these screws in this bag to keep them safe. I've got the die-cast rings, the die-cast fins, carefully placed together. I do stack them, but very carefully, because if they do rub against each other at this point with dirt on them, it could actually scratch the chrome. Same thing with the hubcaps. I do stack them, but very gently. The stainless steel part is going to get a completely different treatment after the wash from the die-cast components. The die-cast components are cleaned in a different way completely. But next step is going to be to wash. This next step here is also critical in preventing damage. We've got the unwashed parts in a box, and before I wet them, I spray them with a reasonably heavy-duty cleaner such as Spray 9, but nothing stronger. I spray them while they're dry because I don't want to wipe them, because the dirt on them can actually scratch them. So we're basically going to try to use the Spray 9 to emulsify the dirt so that it comes off a lot easier. So I've got this set up where I'm going to collect the parts that have been sprayed, and then using a soft bristle brush, a car wash sponge, and some soapy water I'm going to make with car wash soap, basically to slough off all the dirt gently. So I'm up to the part where I'm washing the die-cast rings. I've got one of them done, but I just want to demonstrate the technique of getting these clean without scratching them. So I've got them soaking in car wash soap in the bucket, hot water, and using a long bristle brush. So first I'll go for the interior surface, which has a lot of dirt. It's turning the water black. All the built up sand and silt inside these for years comes out with the soft brush. And then to get into all the corners, using again the soft bristle brush and working my way all the way around in this fashion. For the hubcap body itself, I'm going to skip a step. I'm not going to spray these down with Spray 9, excuse me. The reason being that the original black lacquer insert paint that's here may get spotted or damaged by the concentrated cleaner. So I'm going to go directly to an immersion in the car wash soap, and just like I'm washing a car, gently wash the hubcap, get all the dirt off. The key is to keep everything clean. If there's too much dirt in the bucket, change the water. The water's already black from the other parts, so I may have to change the water soon. This is a good explanation why the soft, long bristle brush is very useful. So for the back side of the hubcap, after I've soaked it a bit and basically made it wet, I'll start with the outer rim, and the bristles get in this deep cavity where there's always a lot of dirt and cobwebs and all kinds of stuff buried. So as I work my way around, you can just watch the dirt float off. Okay, following the wash, we're now going to let the parts dry out thoroughly. A technique that I use to speed up drying is I rinse the parts in the hottest water that I can stand for my hands as possible. That heats up the metal and helps drive out the moisture as the parts are drying. Another interesting thing you'll find is you'll be amazed what doesn't come off. You can see all the grime and filth here on these parts that did not get removed, and thus is good proof for the need to take these hubcaps apart, because you'd really never be able to get to all these corners thoroughly enough with the parts assembled. Same thing with the main body. All the areas where the fins were mounted are still dirty. They have grime. You can see the difference there. One nice thing is the reverse sides did come out perfect. So all that dirt is gone. And we'll let these dry overnight, and we'll continue in the morning with the next step, which is pretty interesting. It's the chemical cleaning. Next up in the process, we're going to do a chemical cleaning of the stainless steel base portion of the hubcap. We're going to start with a tar removal step. We're going to coat the entire hubcap with a rag with a tar remover to dissolve any of the accumulations of tar. If there's a spot that doesn't go away, I found this neat product. It's called a plastic razor blade. It's actually not sharp really at all. It just has a normal stamped plastic edge. But the great thing about this is that it is, of course, softer than stainless steel. So if there's any stubborn tar spots, what I found works really well is just to, get at the base of the tar and flick it off with this plastic razor blade. They snap right off. And then follow up with the tar remover just to get the residue off. After that, we're going to clean the metal with a detergent metal cleaner, metal polish called Noxon. It's the best product I've found for this, that basically dissolves the grime in a more aggressive way. It's not abrasive, so it will polish the hubcap a little bit too, but it basically is going to remove all the years of accumulation of film neatly off the hubcap. And then here's the beautiful final step. We're going to use Mother's maggot aluminum polish. I've tried many different types. This is by far the best one for this application. It actually does improve the brightness of the stainless steel significantly if you do it right by hand. I never use a machine because you're going to get swirl marks. It's just totally not worth it. It does not take that much time to do this by hand. So I'm going to demonstrate how to do that. And then as a final step, in this process, by the way, I'm completely avoiding all of the black accent paint. That's just not going to be touched because it can be harmed by any of these other products. So at the end of that polish step with the Mothers, I'm going to isolate that with just any old car wax is fine. Any old Carnauba car wax is fine, just to brighten those up, but not to use any kind of abrasive on those because it's a very thin coating of black lacquer that's sprayed on here. So now I've wiped these down with the bug and tar remover, and now I'm going to go in with the plastic razor blade and get off the pieces of tar like that. Works really well. So the tar remover not doing well enough on some of these built up grime areas. I don't know what the stuff is. It's stuck to the hubcap, but it's very tough to get off. So I'm resorting to quadruple zero steel wool with Noxon. I would absolutely recommend that you test your individual hubcap before you try the steel wool. In this case, the stainless steel used to make these hubcaps is harder than steel wool, so I won't be scratching it. But other makes and other years, and of course chrome, may get scratched by steel wool, so test it first. But in this case, I think we're going to be able to get this off pretty quickly with the steel wool. And I'll finish that up, make it perfect, but you can see it cut it immediately. Now that the stubborn areas of dirt have all been removed with the Noxon, I go over the hubcap once thoroughly with the Noxon cleaner just to get everything else off. And I'm using, in every case, microfiber towels, which I think are a great resource, except for the mother step. For the mother step, I'm going to use an even softer and material that I find better, which is like a bed sheet flannel or cotton. T-shirt material is kind of too thin, but any natural cotton flannel material works fantastic with the Mothers. So just basically steady pressure, wiping all the way around, moderate pressure because we're going to follow up with the polishing step. So this is just to get all the grime and dirt off. And then once it's dry, with a different, of course, a different microfiber towel to remove the residue. I thoroughly clean the Noxon residue off before I start on the step with the mothers, just to make sure, because the Noxon probably doesn't have as much of a polishing capability as the mothers does. But you can see we're already getting there. It's looking pretty good. Okay, now to make this hubcap as perfect as it possibly can be. The mother's polish is on the the flannel rag, and we're going to start to polish it. The key here is to start out with a fair amount of the polish on the rag, but then as you move from one area to the other on the hubcap, it should be almost like a dry buff. If it's wet and smeary with a lot of the polish, it's not going to work. The key to finding out if it's working, of course, is not only the result, but when you look at the rag after you lift it from the cap, it should be heavily darkened. That is the metal itself being, microscopically rubbed off by the polish. And again, a good amount of pressure. As long as everything is clean, the rag is clean, there's no debris on the hubcap, you can apply a lot of pressure to make the polish work without the concern of a particle of dirt scratching. So we're going to start with the edges. Smear a little bit on to smooth it out. So we're starting with a dry place and then a really good pressure. You want the pressure to actually make the polish. Of course, cover every square inch as much as you can. The edge, a good amount of pressure. And you see the rag turn black. That's the metal. We're getting results. All right, here we have an end result, and it's looking spectacular. This is really where the satisfaction comes in. This is absolutely gorgeous. The stainless steel came up really nice. Even the black paint has a nice natural semi-gloss sheen to it. And this part's done. So we're going to do all four and then head over to the die-cast parts next. To clean the corrosion and film off of the die-cast rings and fins, we're going to use a product called Naval Jelly, or now it's Loctite brand Rust Dissolver. It basically is a mild acid in the form of a gel, and what we do here is we take the part that you can see is still dull and corroded looking, and we literally brush on the Naval Jelly, totally covering it, and then let it sit. Each part's got to sit for about 20 minutes, so I'm going to do all of them at once, wait 20 minutes, and then rinse. I've got a bucket of sudsy car wash soap water ready because the acid will be neutralized by the basic nature of soap, so you'll stop all the action of the Naval Jelly, and we'll see the results. So here we have it. The Naval Jelly has done most of the work for us. Midway through the 20 minutes of sitting with the Naval Jelly, I rebrushed each part with the same paintbrush with the Naval Jelly, just to provide some scouring action and to let the Naval Jelly go to the deepest layer to make sure every, all of that film was removed. I would say it's 95%. A couple of parts, you can see there's a slight film in one of the corners, in some of the corners still, but that's going to come right off with Noxon really easily. The big time saver here is, of course, we're not going to have to get into all of these little grooves with our fingers to rub off any of the oxidation. It's all been taken care of chemically by the Naval Jelly. But these parts are going to dry now, and then I'm going to immediately follow up with just a light coat of Noxon with a clean brand new rag to protect them and also to get off the rest of the film. And then these parts will be complete. One of the best things is that these ultra fine ribs that are on the appearance surfaces of these fins that align with these grooves. Very difficult to clean any other way but chemically, because you really can't get in there. The grooves are so fine, you really can't get any rag or Noxon to actually get it clean. So the chemical process works just spectacularly on these parts with no damage. So here I go with the Noxon, the final step on these parts. Just a very light rubbing, almost no effort whatsoever. The naval jelly did all the work. This is just to apply a protective coat to make sure every bit of film is off, and then wipe it clean with a dry towel. And the part is done. Perfectly clean. Now, just to double emphasize, I'm not using the mag and aluminum polish on the chrome. It's really just for the stainless steel to polish that. The final step on the die-cast chrome-plated parts is just Noxon. And it's your option as well to use regular carnauba wax to protect these. But I do find the Noxon gives enough protection, and it leaves a brighter finish. Sometimes wax will actually make like a very light bluish or dullish coat on the chrome because it's laying over it, where the Noxon is designed to be a metal polish, so the result is just perfect. We are now at the last step, which is reassembly. I've applied Noxon to all the die-cast parts. They're all protected and wiped off and inspected. Everything's beautiful. The only thing I did off camera was to wash the hardware. I used a strainer to make sure I didn't lose any parts, washed them with water, dried them, and then put a little tiny bit of WD-40 in the stainless steel bowl, moved them around to make sure they're all covered, and then sopped up the extra WD-40 just to make sure, to keep everything neat. But the WD-40 will give a little lubrication on the threads and also give some corrosion protection from when these are all put back together. So I'm going to start, and I'll come back once everything's put back together. And here we have it. The full set of 4 have been reassembled. The only thing extra that I did is wipe them down one more time with a clean towel to get my fingerprints off. And they're ready to roll. We've easily doubled the value of this set with really no restoration, just cleaning. And I gotta say, they look so much better, it's crazy. They're just gorgeous, ready for virtually any car. I mean, for a concourse car, maybe not quite perfect enough, but for even show cars, even a show car, these are quite respectable. They're gonna look fantastic once back on a car. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and look forward to another series on another topic soon. Thank you for watching.